I was sitting on a hard wooden bench in that courtroom, staring across the aisle at my dad. He had this smug smile plastered on his face, leaning back like he had already won. Next to him sat Gabrielle, his new wife, her red nails tapping against the armrest. They looked so confident, so sure that those 3 Florida Keys houses were about to be theirs. All theirs. I held a white envelope in my hands, my fingers trembling just slightly. The judge had not opened it yet. Nobody knew what was inside except me. But I knew. And I knew everything was about to change. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you are watching from. If you have ever been through a family court battle, hit that like button. And subscribe, because what the judge said after reading my letter will leave you speechless. My mom, Diana, was the most incredible woman I ever knew. I can still picture her when I was 10 years old, standing in our kitchen with flour on her cheek, laughing as she pulled an apple pie from the oven. She had long brown hair that she always tied back in a neat ponytail, and these soft green eyes that made you feel safe no matter what was happening. She worked as an elementary school teacher, coming home every day at 3 in the afternoon with stories about her students. Our house always smelled like cinnamon and fresh-baked goods on Saturday mornings. Mom loved gardening. She planted white roses around all 3 of our houses in the Florida Keys. On weekends, she and I would ride our bikes along the beach, the salty air whipping through our hair. She would tell me stories about my grandmother, the woman who left her an inheritance that changed our lives. Mom always said the same thing as we pedaled side by side. Family is the most important thing, son. Remember that. My dad, Howard, was different back then. He was 40 years old when this story really begins, a hard-working guy who fixed air conditioning units for a living. He would come home covered in sweat and smelling like machine oil, but he always had a smile for Mom. On weekends, he would wash his truck in the driveway, and I would help him spray it down with the hose. He taught me how to fish from the small dock near our house. Sunday nights, he drank cold beer and watched football, his loud laugh filling the living room. He was good to Mom. I saw him hug her from behind while she cooked dinner, and every anniversary he bought her yellow tulips. He was not rich, but he seemed happy with what we had. The 3 houses Mom bought were everything to us. The main house sat at 123 Coral Drive. It was a 2-story place painted soft blue with white window frames. Mom planted that tall coconut tree in the front yard herself, along with her beloved white roses. Inside, the living room had a beige sofa and a walnut coffee table she picked out from a thrift store. The kitchen had blue mosaic tiles she laid herself, taking an entire week to finish. There were 3 bedrooms upstairs, and mine looked out over the ocean. I could fall asleep every night listening to the waves. The first rental house was just a 3-minute walk from the beach. It was a single-story, 2-bedroom place painted cream yellow. Mom decorated it in what she called coastal style. All blues and white, seashells on the shelves, paintings of ocean waves on the walls. Tourists loved it. She rented it out for $2,000 a week during peak season, and I helped her clean between guests every summer. I remember scrubbing floors next to her, both of us laughing when the vacuum cleaner broke and we had to finish by hand. The second rental was farther from the center of town, quieter. It was 2 stories with 3 bedrooms and a balcony that faced the most beautiful sunsets I have ever seen. Mom bought that one as a gift for Dad on their 20th wedding anniversary. I will never forget the way he cried when she handed him the deed, pulling her into his arms and holding her so tight. That house brought in steady income too, helping our family stay comfortable. Mom told me the whole story one night when I was around 12. Her mother, my grandmother, had passed away and left her $300,000. Mom was only 26 at the time. She made the decision to invest it all in real estate, buying those 3 houses in the Florida Keys. She put Dad's name on the paperwork because he was her husband, and she trusted him completely. But the money, every single dollar, came from her account. She kept all the receipts, all the transfer records locked in a metal safe in their bedroom. She told me those houses were going to be mine one day. Your future, Kendrick. I am building your future. Then everything fell apart. I was 16 when Mom started feeling sick. It was September and she went to the doctor thinking she just had a bad stomach flu. They found ovarian cancer stage 3. The doctor said her chances were not good. For 2 years, we fought alongside her. 2 years of chemotherapy that made her so weak she could barely stand. She lost her hair, dropping from 130 pounds down to 90. She started wearing a light blue scarf wrapped around her head. I dropped out of school for 3 months just to stay home and help. There were nights when she was so sick, throwing up into a bowl while I held it steady and wiped her face with a damp cloth. Dad was still good to her during those 2 years. He went to work every day but came home early to make her soup or porridge. He sat beside her bed, reading to her when she was too tired to hold a book. But I could see the exhaustion in his eyes. I could see him breaking. In July, right after I turned 18, Mom went to the hospital for the last time. She grabbed my hand, her grip so weak it barely felt like anything, and whispered, "Take care of our home, son." She died on a Sunday morning while rain poured down outside. The sky cried with us. The first 3 months after she was gone, Dad barely spoke. He would sit in Mom's favorite chair, staring out at the ocean for hours. I cooked meals that he barely touched. He drank more beer than usual. By the 4th month, something shifted. He started going out to play poker with his friends, coming home late, smelling like alcohol. By the 5th month, he disappeared for days without explanation. When I asked where he had been, he snapped at me. "Leave me alone, kid." I was only 19, trying to manage both rental properties by myself. Cleaning them, checking guests in and out, fixing broken faucets and clogged toilets. The money from the rentals went into the account, and I kept a notebook tracking every payment. I felt uneasy, but I told myself Dad was just grieving. He would come back to himself eventually. Then came February, 8 months after Mom died. It was a Friday night, and I was washing dishes in the kitchen when I heard the front door open. Dad walked in with a woman I had never seen before. Her name was Gabrielle. She was 32 years old, 15 years younger than Dad, with dyed red hair, bright red fingernails, and a tight black dress. She smiled a lot, but it never reached her eyes. There was something cold about the way she looked at me, like she was sizing me up. Dad introduced us casually, like it was no big deal. "This is Gabrielle. We have been seeing each other." I stood there in shock, soapy water dripping from my hands, unable to believe Dad had moved on so quickly. Gabrielle walked over and shook my hand. "Nice to meet you, sweetheart." Her handshake was limp and cold, over in less than a second. That night, they had dinner at our table. Gabrielle talked endlessly about herself. She worked in retail sales, had been divorced once, no kids. She kept looking around the house, making little comments. "This place needs a woman touch." I felt my stomach turn. Within a month, Gabrielle was staying over regularly. 2 weeks later, she moved her stuff in completely. She started changing things immediately. The beige curtains in the living room that Mom had chosen were replaced with dark red ones. Photos of Mom came off the walls, replaced by generic landscape paintings I had never seen before. The dishes Mom used every day, white with little blue flowers, disappeared into boxes and were replaced by a modern black set. When I tried to object, Dad cut me off. "Son, your mom is gone. We need to move on." Gabrielle would smile sweetly and say, "I am just trying to make this place more modern." But it felt like she was erasing Mom from our home. She started treating me like hired help. "Can you take out the trash, wash the dishes, mow the lawn?" Her tone was not a request. It was an order. I did the work because I did not want to fight with Dad, but inside I hated her more every single day. One afternoon I cooked a fish dish that Mom used to make her special recipe. Gabrielle walked into the kitchen, smelled it, and wrinkled her nose. "What is that smell?" Before I could answer, she grabbed the pan and dumped the entire thing into the garbage. I hate fish. I stood there speechless, my hands clenched into fists. Dad was sitting right there in the living room. He saw everything, and he said nothing. By May, 1 year after Mom died, Dad came into the kitchen one evening while I was washing dishes. "I have some news. Gabrielle and I are getting married next month." I dropped the plate I was holding. It shattered on the floor, pieces of ceramic scattering everywhere. "What, Dad? It has only been a year since Mom died." His face turned red. "I know how long it has been. I was there." Gabrielle appeared behind him, wrapping her arm around his waist. "Honey, your son just needs time to adjust." I looked at Dad, pleading. "This is too fast. You barely know her." His voice turned hard. "I know her enough, and I am not asking for your permission." The wedding happened at City Hall. No big party, just a few of their friends. I was not asked to help plan anything. I was barely even acknowledged. On the day they got married, I sat in the corner of the room watching Dad kiss Gabrielle at the altar, and all I could think was that he had betrayed Mom memory. Everything she built, everything she wanted, felt like it was slipping away. Once they were officially married, Gabrielle became the queen of the house. She told me I had to move out of my bedroom, the big one with the ocean view. "We need that room for guests." I was forced into a tiny room on the first floor with no windows. Every morning she left a list of chores on the kitchen counter. Clean the pool, mow the lawn, fix the leak in bathroom 2. I did everything she asked because I was trying to keep the peace. But it felt like I was a servant in my own home. One night I made that fish dish again, the one Mom used to cook. Gabrielle smelled it from the living room and stormed into the kitchen. She did not say a word. She just grabbed the pan and threw the whole thing into the trash, fish and all. "I hate this smell. Do not make it again." I stood there staring at the garbage, my heart pounding, my hands shaking. Dad sat on the couch 10 feet away, watching television, acting like nothing had happened. That was the moment I realized he was not going to protect me anymore. He had chosen her. 2 years passed like that. I was 21, still living in that tiny room, still doing every chore Gabrielle demanded. Then came a Wednesday night in November. I had been working a late shift at my part-time job and got home around 11 at night. I opened the front door as quietly as I could, not wanting to wake anyone. But as I stepped inside, I heard voices coming from upstairs. The bedroom door was cracked open, and a yellow light spilled out into the hallway. I stopped at the bottom of the staircase. I was not trying to eavesdrop, but I heard my name and I froze. Gabrielle was talking. "Howard, we need to talk about those houses," Dad replied. "What about them?" she continued. "They are in your name, right?" "All 3. Dad hesitated. "Yeah, but Diana bought them with her inheritance." Gabrielle's voice turned sharp. "So what? You are her husband. What is hers is yours." There was silence for a few seconds. Then she kept going. "Look, that kid of yours thinks he owns half of everything. We need to make sure he gets nothing." Dad's voice was uncertain. "Gabrielle, he is my son. Diana wanted him to have the houses." She cut him off. "Diana is dead, honey. You are alive. I am alive." We deserve those houses more than some ungrateful kid. I stood there, my legs trembling, my chest so tight I could barely breathe. Dad's voice came again. I do not know. Gabriel's tone shifted softer, manipulative. Do you love me? Of course I do. Then prove it. Transfer everything to your name only. Cut him out of any inheritance. We will sell those 2 rentals, take the money, and move somewhere nice. Dad sighed long and heavy. All right, I will talk to a lawyer. I turned and walked back down the stairs as quietly as I had come up. I went to my windowless room, lay on the bed, and stared at the ceiling, my eyes wide open. They were planning to steal everything Mom left me. I knew then that I had to act. I could not let them take what was mine. 2 days later, on a Friday morning, Dad and Gabrielle left the house early. They said they were going shopping and would not be back until evening. As soon as their car disappeared down the street, I went upstairs to their bedroom. I knew Mom kept important documents in the metal safe inside their closet. The password was her birth date, 01021985. I punched it in, and the door clicked open. Inside was a thick folder. I pulled it out and started going through the papers. There was Mom handwritten, will notarized in 2012. It said clearly, I leave all 3 houses to my son, Kendrick. There were bank transfer receipts showing money moving from her account to pay for the houses. There was a savings account statement proving the $300,000 inheritance from my grandmother. There were original ownership certificates showing the source of funds was Diana. And at the bottom of the folder was a brown leather diary, worn and old. I took out my phone and photographed every single document. Then I grabbed the original will and the diary, stuffing them into my backpack. I closed the safe, making sure everything looked untouched, and went back downstairs. My heart was pounding, but I felt a strange sense of calm. I finally had proof. The following Monday, I searched online for a lawyer. I found an office near the harbor called Lawrence and Associates. The building was small and old, but the reviews were good. I walked in and met a man named Lawrence. He was 65 years old, gray hair, black-framed glasses, a deep and warm voice. He had been practicing law for 40 years. I sat down across from him and told him everything. He listened carefully, taking notes, nodding occasionally. When I finished, he asked to see the documents. I handed over the photos on my phone and the original will. He studied them for several minutes, then looked up at me. This is solid, son. Your mother clearly intended these properties for you, but your father's name is on the deeds. It will be complicated. We need to file a civil suit to claim your rightful inheritance. His fee was $5,000 up front. I had been saving money from my part-time job, and I agreed to pay. We started preparing the paperwork. 2 weeks after I filed the lawsuit, Dad received the court documents. That night, he called me into the living room. Gabrielle sat next to him, arms crossed, glaring at me like I was her enemy. Dad held up the papers, his face red with anger. What the hell is this? I stayed calm. I am taking back what Mom left me. His voice rose. Those houses are mine. My name is on them. I met his eyes. Mom bought them with her money. She wanted me to have them. Gabrielle's voice was poison. You are such an ungrateful little brat. I looked at Dad, waiting for him to defend me. Are you really going to let her talk to me like that? He stared at me for a long moment, then said, Get out of my house. I shook my head. This is Mom's house, not yours. He stood up, his face twisted in rage. I said, Get out. Now. I grabbed my backpack, walked out the door, and did not look back. I stayed at my friend Marcus' place for the next few months. 3 months later, in March, the court date arrived. I woke up at 6 in the morning, showered, and put on a light blue button-down shirt and black dress pants. Lawrence met me at the courthouse at 8. The Monroe County Courthouse in the Florida Keys was an old building with dark wood paneling and hard benches. I sat down on one side of the aisle. Across from me, Dad and Gabrielle sat with their lawyer, a man named Sterling. He was 50 years old, wearing a shiny black suit and carrying an expensive leather briefcase. He looked confident. The room filled with local people curious about the case. At 8:30, the bailiff called out, "All rise." Everyone stood. Judge Whitmore entered the room. He was 60 years old, gray hair, a stern face, and sharp eyes. He sat down at the bench and banged his gavel. "Court is now in session." Sterling stood up first. "Your Honor, this is a simple case. My client Howard has owned these 3 properties for over 15 years. The deeds are in his name. He and his late wife bought them together during their marriage. Under Florida law, assets acquired during marriage are marital property. His son Kendrick has no legal claim to these houses. Furthermore, Kendrick has trespassed and stolen documents from my client home. He is trying to manipulate the court with forged papers." I wanted to scream, but Lawrence put a hand on my arm telling me to stay quiet. Sterling called Dad to the witness stand. Dad took the oath and sat down. Sterling asked Mr. Howard, "Can you tell the court about your relationship with your son?" Dad's voice was steady but sad. "I raised him, gave him everything, a roof, food, education. After his mother died, I was devastated, but I tried to keep the family together. Then he turned on me, accused me of stealing from him. I never stole anything. Those houses are mine. I worked hard for them." His voice cracked a little, and a few people in the courtroom looked sympathetic. Then Gabrielle took the stand. She wore a conservative black dress and had her makeup done perfectly. Sterling asked Mrs. Gabrielle, "Has Kendrick ever threatened you?" She nodded. "Yes. He told me he would make sure I got nothing. He called me terrible names, said I was a gold digger. I was scared of him. He has anger issues." I could not believe what I was hearing. Every word was a lie. But she delivered it so convincingly that some people in the room seemed to believe her. Finally, it was our turn. Lawrence stood up calm and composed. "Your Honor, let me present the facts." He placed the will on the table in front of the judge. "This is Diana, will notarized in 2012. It clearly states I leave all 3 houses to my son Kendrick." He then produced the bank transfer receipts. These are transfers from Diana account, totaling $300,000. This money came from her mother inheritance, not marital funds. Under Florida law, inheritance is separate property, not marital. Diana bought these houses with her separate property. Therefore, they belong to her and her rightful heir. Then it was my turn. I walked up to the stand, placed my hand on the Bible, and swore to tell the truth. Lawrence asked me to tell the court about my mother. I took a deep breath. My mom was the kindest person I ever knew. She worked as a teacher and saved every penny. When her mom died, she used the inheritance to buy 3 houses. She told me those houses were for my future. Before she died, she made me promise to take care of them. After she passed, my dad changed. He married Gabrielle less than a year later. They treated me like a servant in my own home. I heard them planning to take everything and leave me with nothing. I am not here for greed. I am here to honor my mom's wishes. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the white envelope. "Your Honor, I have one more thing." I handed it to the clerk, who passed it up to the judge. "This is a letter I wrote along with pages from my mom's diary. I am asking the court to review it." Judge Whitmore opened the envelope slowly. He pulled out 2 pieces of paper. One was the letter I had written by hand. The other was a copied page from Mom's diary. The courtroom went silent. Everyone watched as the judge read. His expression was unreadable at first, but then his eyebrows raised slightly. He read the letter first. Your Honor, my name is Kendrick. I am 21 years old. My mother Diana died 3 years ago from cancer. Before she died, she told me to take care of the 3 houses she bought with her mother money. She said those houses were my future. My father remarried quickly. His new wife, Gabrielle, convinced him to take everything from me. I am not asking for charity. I am asking for what my mother wanted me to have. Attached is a page from my mom's diary. She wrote it 2 months before she died. Please read it. Then he read the diary page. June 10th, 2018. I do not have much time left. The doctors said maybe 3 months. I am writing this in case something happens and people question my intentions. I bought 3 houses in Florida Keys with money my mother left me. The total was $295,000. I put Howard's name on the deeds because he is my husband, and I trusted him. But those houses are mine. I paid for them with my inheritance. If I die, I want them to go to my son, Kendrick. He is a good boy. He deserves a future. I am writing this now because I fear Howard might change if I am gone. I pray he stays strong and honors my wishes. But if he does not, I hope the law will protect my son. Diana. Judge Whitmore looked up. He glanced at Dad and Gabrielle, whose faces had gone pale. He looked at me. Then a small smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Not a mocking smile. More like the smile of someone who had just seen the truth laid bare. He spoke clearly and loudly. Well, this is interesting. The room erupted in whispers. Dad and Gabrielle looked at each other, panic written all over their faces. Gabrielle grabbed Dad's arm and whispered something frantically. Sterling stood up. Your Honor, we request to see that document. The judge nodded. You will get a copy, counselor. He handed the papers to the clerk who made copies and passed them to Sterling. Sterling read quickly, and the color drained from his face. Dad lowered his head, unable to look at anyone. Judge Whitmore banged his gavel to quiet the room. After reviewing all evidence, the court finds as follows. Diana purchased 3 properties using her separate inheritance. Although Howard's name appears on the deeds, the source of funds was Diana's separate property. Under Florida law, separate property remains separate even in marriage. Diana's will and diary clearly express her intent. The properties belong to Kendrick. He paused, then continued. Therefore, the court orders the following. The primary residence at 123 Coral Drive will be split. 50% to Howard, 50% to Kendrick. The 2 rental properties will go 100% to Kendrick. Howard and Gabrielle must vacate those rental properties within 30 days. Kendrick has the right to manage and profit from those properties. He banged the gavel hard. This case is closed. I felt like I could finally breathe again. Lawrence patted me on the shoulder. You did it, son. Across the aisle, Dad stood up without looking at me. He grabbed Gabrielle by the arm and pulled her toward the exit. She turned back and shot me a look filled with pure hatred. You will regret this, she hissed. Judge Whitmore banged his gavel again. Order in the court. They left. I walked out into the bright sunlight feeling strange. I had won. I had protected what Mom wanted for me. But I did not feel victorious. I felt empty. I looked down the street and saw Dad and Gabrielle getting into their car. Dad did not turn around. He did not say a word. I realized in that moment that I had lost my father. But I had kept my mother's legacy, and that was what mattered. Over the next 6 months, I moved into one of the rental houses, the one near the beach with the ocean view. I repainted the walls in soft beige the way Mom liked. I planted white roses in the garden just like she used to. I managed both rental properties, and the income was steady and good. I made a new friend named Dylan, and we played basketball on the weekends. Life started to feel normal again. I still missed Mom every single day, but the pain was not as sharp. I could think about her and smile instead of cry. I learned something important through all of this. Money can change people. Greed can destroy families. But justice still exists if you are brave enough to fight for it. Real love, the kind my mother had for me, will always protect you even after death. And sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you become the ones you need protection from. One evening, I stood on the balcony of my house watching the sun set over the ocean. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink. The waves rolled in gently, and the smell of salt filled the air. I thought about Mom, about everything she sacrificed, everything she planned. I whispered into the wind, I kept my promise, Mom. Sometimes the people who should protect you become the ones you need protection from. But if you stand firm and fight for what is right, truth will always rise. And in the end, that is all that matters. Have you ever had to stand up to family to protect what was rightfully yours? Drop a comment below and tell me your story. If this video moved, you hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel for more real-life stories about courage and justice. Share this with someone who needs to hear that standing up for yourself is worth it. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that no matter how hard things get, the truth will always find a way to shine through. Stay strong and take care.